Hello, everybody. Today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing the amazing Laura Belgray. Laura, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. I'm thrilled to be here.
So, why don't we start with who you are, who you serve, what do you do for them?
Okay. So I have a company called Talking Shrimp. I am known for copywriting, but my broader, more umbrella mission is to help entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small businesses, people ending in preneur, there's every version of that, find the words and the courage to make their business a 100% expression of their personality so that they are as close as humanly possible to getting paid to be themselves. Me, that's the holy grail of work is getting paid to be you. So.
And can you tell me just a tiny bit, because I'm going to be asking you a lot more about that. What are some ways that entrepreneurs can work with you right now?
They can work with me through, well, currently it's not open, but who knows when this will air. So through Shrimp Club, they should absolutely be on my list. That one way they can connect with me is be on my list, get my emails. I have to brag that my emails have been often called a masterclass in email writing and storytelling. So get on my list, be there. And I have mini courses on my site that they can buy at any time. And that's the 60-minute makeover copywriting mini course. And I have an about page builder. And then different times of the year, there are different courses. The copy cure comes up at least once. It'll be open at least once in, I believe, spring of 2021. And then there is Inbox Hero, which Inbox Hero and Launch Hero, which I'll also open up once or twice in 2021. So
Yeah.
that's how they can work with me.
And I have to tell you, I read your emails and they are it's like reading a blog of you, but you find that there are ways that there are times that I'm reading your emails. I'm like, how did she come up with this? I mean, it's super witty, it's super fun to read, and it's like you're living that life that you want everybody else to have. It's like I want to get paid just for being me, and I feel like you're actually doing it. And I want to go way back to
Mhm.
see where this knack for words came from. And I did a little digging.
Uh-huh.
So I want to go back to your mom. So your
Oh,
mom, Alice Belgray, she was the
yeah.
chairwoman of the Children's Book Committee at the Bank Street College of Education. And
Wow.
it publishes a list of the year's best children's books. So I'm here
Hmm.
like, well, she had the literary pedigree already. So what was that like growing up in that household?
You really did do your homework. I'm so impressed. Nobody has ever mentioned that. So, yeah, I mean, it was kind of a literary household. My mom switched to children's book publishing from, she was originally a musicologist. She had her PhD in music and she was going to maybe teach music and then did some, pivoting, soul searching around in her late 40s and found out that she wanted to work in publishing. She did those diagnostic tests, career finding courses, etc., and got into that. And this is not about literature and writing, but just about as a role model. She started in publishing as an assistant, possibly as an intern in her late 40s, like from square one at the age where most people were, either corporate executives or not or becoming grandmothers. So that always left an impression on me, that kind of late pivot reinvention. And she's not a writer per se, but she is a great writer. So she would read my she would read my school papers and help me with them. And I remember her saying, "This is a little overwritten." And I think so. It was from her that I learned to use words a little bit more sparingly. And I do run long. And my father would also have taken credit for my writing. He always talked about how he was a freelance writer and a freelance writer for magazines in the 60s and had clippings from a magazine called Rogue Magazine, which was about, I think he had an article that he was showing me and my husband called Beware the Man in the Gray Flannel Suit. And it was some kind of scandalous, like corporate expose. And so anyway, there was I would say, a regard for words in the family, but it wasn't like, oh, it's my legacy to become a writer.
Yeah. So how did that come about? Where did you first start to feel like, okay, I have a knack for this. Maybe this is a thing. Like, how did
Mhm.
that go?
Well, I did always know that I was good at writing, and I was told so in school, and I got great grades on my papers, et cetera, and knew that I would like to do something with writing. But when I got out of college, I just had no idea what to do with it because to me, a writer was either somebody in like who lived in a garret
Mhm.
and maybe wore a beret and wrote on a typewriter all day long, like sadly, crying into a glass of whiskey and pulling terrible drafts out of the typewriter and crumpling them in a full wastebasket, or it was somebody working in maybe advertising, wearing big shoulder pads and pantyhose and working for the man, and that
You're painting a very 1980s
yes,
picture right
yes.
now.
Well, there was a movie called Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason, where Tom Hanks worked in advertising, and they threw pencil. I remember them brainstorming and throwing pencils at the drop ceiling, like darts, and thinking, oh well, maybe advertising would be fun, but it also sounded horrible. And then there was journalism, like writing notes on a journalist notepad and interviewing people. And I wanted nothing to do with that. That did not appeal to me at all. So I didn't know what I was going to do with my writing. And then I discovered, I guess, around 24, I discovered a thing called promos. My friend Adam, who I'd met working at a magazine, I had lunch with him and he said that his new job was writing promos for VH1. I said, "What are promos?" And he said, "Well, I watch a lot of TV and I write the little things in between the commercials." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's a job. I have to have that job." So he hooked me up with an interview, with the head of VH1 promos, and she assigned me a promo. And that's where I started. That's where I started writing promos. And basically, I knew that I was meant to write little things. I
Mhm.
loved writing short little things and did that for years and years and years. And then fell into the online world really by accident much later in 2009, 2010, because I was friends with one Marie Forleo, who
Yeah,
I'd met in hip hop class at Crunch.
right.
And so she led me. I didn't know where she was leading me, but she led me into the online world. And that eventually became my entire business. I segued out of promos and started working for private clients in the online world, and then eventually made myself my only client. And that's where we end up getting paid to be me.
Yeah. And I actually want to get more of a feel for what it was like going through this journey because you just synthesized like 15 years for me into like 45
Yeah.
seconds.
Hmm.
And yes, I actually am going to put the link to an interview that you did with James Wetmore, and I'll put it in the description because you go through the entire story of meeting Marie and what that was like.
Uh-huh.
And I want everybody to hear all of that. And there's a lot that I want to talk to you, so it's going to be a great complement to this episode.
Perfect.
So I want to know, first of all, you went to Wesleyan University. What did you go
Yes.
to Wesleyan for?
College.
For college.
Yeah, just to go to college. It was where I wanted to go, for a BA, and, I majored in English. I
Okay.
chose that because I wanted to read novels and not textbooks.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible reader, especially with textbooks, and, they were the bane of my existence in high school, and I actually got out of history class by taking a combination of chemistry, which I wasn't good at, and ancient Greek
Hmm.
language, um, all to get out of history because I couldn't handle the reading for history. So I took English and decided to major in English so that I could read things like, 20th century literature and Russian literature, and that was what I wanted to do, and it was great.
And then you get this job writing some promos. How did the shift go
Ah,
from
mhm.
bartending and writing some
Okay.
promos to full-time
Uh,
writing for TV?
Yeah, well, I skipped a step between the promos, between the bartending and the promos. Um, when I was done with bartending, because I'd been fired again, and sleeping late every day, and like just going out till 4 a.m. and working out and eating cereal all
Mhm.
day long, a friend from high school called me, woke me at like 11 a.m. and was like, I'm at a job right now where we need more people. I'm working for this author, Lisa Birnbach, who she had bragged about being friends with before.
Mhm.
Lisa Birnbach had written the Preppy Handbook, which was a huge phenomenon in the 80s. And so I knew who she was. And she was writing her second edition college book, her guide to colleges. So my friend was like, we need fact checkers. Lisa needs more fact checkers. Can you come in and work? And I was like, I guess it sounds kind of cool. When? She's like, now, today. Like, oh no, I had my whole day planned out. I was still had more sleeping to do and all that, but I decided to pull it together and go in. And I worked for Lisa, fact checking for probably about 6 weeks. And then she said, I remember my father coming in to take me to lunch one day at this job. It was my first real job, and he was very proud. And I remember Lisa saying to him, Laura's great. We've got to find a way to tap that talent. And I remember thinking, oh, please tap my talent. That's all I ever wanted. And I was like, I think I've found my mentor. She wants to tap my talent. And when this job ended, she didn't have much to do with me. She tried. She was like, maybe you can help me organize my office. That didn't work so well, but she was going to Spy Magazine, which was this cool downtown New York City publication. That made fun of people like Donald Trump. And she was going as a deputy editor, and she said, maybe I can get you an internship.
Mhm.
So she did. She got me an internship. And that lasted about, I think that lasted 6 months. It did last 6 months. I was a terrible intern, did not have any ideas. We were supposed to, we had tasks that we were supposed to do each day, concrete ones like Xerox all the gossip pages from every daily newspaper, staple them together, pass them around to the editors. That I could do. We were also supposed to be pitching ideas, pitching articles, stories. And I had no ideas for that. And the managing editor took me to lunch. And after a few weeks, maybe a month or so, and said, I just want to let you know, you can take initiative here. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know. I just don't
In
have
case
any.
it hadn't occurred to you,
Yes.
like in case you didn't think it was allowed, let me just tell you.
You have permission to do something with yourself. Um, and so I never really, I wouldn't say I was in my glory
Mhm.
in that internship, but I got hired by the advertising side at the end of it. We were all on one floor and we were all friends. That doesn't happen a lot in magazines. There's separation of church and state, but at Spy, everybody was on one floor and all friends. And so the ad side needed somebody, and it was a paid job. And so I got hired over there. And among other things, I got to write my first advertorial. And so an advertorial, for people who don't know, is that page in the magazine that looks like it's part of the magazine but actually is an advertisement.
Mhm.
It's editorial, it's advertising that looks like editorial. So I wrote one for Dewar's Scotch, and it was a quiz called "Do you party like your Uncle Marty?" And it was this quiz to determine whether you are an old geezer.
Mhm.
And if so, then you needed doers to spice up your life. And there was a cocktail recipe, and some other fun facts and whatever. And people loved that. They thought I did an amazing job with it. And I guess that was my first adventure in writing copy.
Right.
And so I started doing more stuff like that, and accumulated enough of a portfolio to get hired. When Spy folded, I got hired at New York Magazine as their in-house copywriter.
Yeah.
And so I was there for a while, and that's when I segued into promos.
Yeah. So this has been like an illustrious career, like without even trying. You're like, I know who I am, and like that's not me. This is me, and it seems like people want your talent so much that they were like plucking you out of obscurity, saying like, "Can you please come and help us?" And you're like, "Okay, I guess." And then you end up with jobs with AVH1 and HBO and
Mhm.
working on shows. And what was that like for you? It seems so surreal without having a plan that you would get this successful with writing.
It was incredibly lucky. I felt super lucky to get this. Well, to first of all, to find out about promos,
Mhm,
and second, to find out about them at a time I didn't know it yet. But that was kind of a golden age of promos, and it was a time when the words mattered, when things were done with a lot of voiceover. So there was a lot to write. It has become something that's just about cutting, really. There's some brilliant promos still being done, but most of it is cutting clips together to music with with a few words on the screen in graphics. There's not You don't hear that voiceover anymore. So I was there at the perfect time for my style of writing, and I ended up at the place that I loved the most for promos, which was Nick at Night. That
mhm.
was the like I had seen their promos even before I knew what promos were. I had seen them on the air. I watched Nick at Night, and I thought, ah, I wonder who writes that stuff. That's really funny. I would love to do that. So I ended up there, and it was kind of a dreams come true moment,
Mhm.
and a long one. And so I was very lucky because I would like to say that I don't believe in magical thinking. However, I didn't really learn any lessons that told me that it doesn't work, because I was hoping something would come to me, and it did.
They just said.
Yeah.
And so what was that? Did you like your job when you were writing, all these promos and for these, TV? Like, let's go fast forward to the time around the time that you lose your job writing the promos. You've already started working a little bit with Marie.
hmm
I want to know, like, what was life like? What did you think of your life then?
Well, I was in a creative rut. I had been doing promos for a long time, and a lot of us in promos had kind of made a pact. It wasn't a real pact, but we would say to each other, like, shoot me if I'm still doing this when I'm 40. Or, it's is a thing to do for a while, I think, not for your whole life, unless you are so extraordinary at them that you can, first of all, I think, keep making more money, because I don't like being somewhere where there's an income ceiling.
Mhm,
I don't like being in anything where there's an income ceiling, and there was, at least for me, in promos. Um, so there was a feeling of complacency, of like, I should be writing something else. I should be, doing something else with my voice, but I don't know what. I didn't know what to do with it. And that was a constant struggle. Because I also felt like in promos, sometimes I would come up with something genius and sometimes I would not. And it was always expected and hoped for, like lightning in a bottle. We need a breakout concept. And that's not my favorite form of thinking
mhm,
and writing is, high concept. I feel incredibly lucky when something comes to me. When I
mhm,
think of something, especially something visual, because I don't think very visually.
mhm,
So it felt I felt hit or miss. And I like to feel more in control of my output, of my, what I feel like I like to feel excellent
mhm,
at what I'm doing. So I was getting antsy and feeling in a creative rut and complacent. And in 2010, my boss, from my biggest client, where I had a six-figure contract, called me into her office. And I was like, "Oh, is this about the Betty White project we're working on? I actually have some ideas finally to show you." And she's like, "No, it's not about that. Close the door." And I knew that was not a good moment when she said close the door. Unless I was like, is this a hush hush project she's going to give me?
top secret.
But it was, yeah, top secret. It was not. She was, had called me in to let me know that they didn't need to renew my contract. It was up and they weren't going to renew it. And that was kind of, but she was like, well, of course, we'll have you on speed dial. We'll still hire you for things. But that was not the case. And so I was like, crap, now I have, a six-figure contract to make up in my income. That was my bread and butter. I had
Yeah.
some other freelance projects, but luckily I had already been taking some private clients in the entrepreneur space through Marie, and people who had become aware of me because I spoke for Marie at her event,
Mhm.
her first live event. It was called Rich, Happy, and Hot Live, and it was in the library in Soho House in New York City, like 50 people. And she asked me to give a talk, 5 Secrets to Non-Sucky Copy. And I gave that, and people started coming up to me and saying, oh, can you help me with my copy? I'm a realtor. I need help with my website, etc. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And so I started working in that direction, that form. And so luckily I had an avenue there to get more clients and do something else. And so I put services up on my site and might have mentioned in an email to my very small list that I had services up on my site, and people started hiring me for those.
Yeah.
And eventually I ended up segueing out of promos. I did a mix of the two things for a long time.
Mhm.
Every time somebody said, what do you do? I'd be like, well, I have a copywriting company. It sort of has two arms. One arm is I write promos for TV, and then I'd explain what promos are. And then the other arm is I do private, client work for entrepreneurs, people who need help with their websites or their email copy or their marketing, etc. And so that was how I described my work for a long time.
How did it feel for you to have this kind of client now? Because you haven't done this particular kind of work before. You've been doing promos, you've been on TV, you've been doing something that is more
Yeah.
entertaining, and now you
Yes.
have these clients. I wonder what it felt like to you. Did it feel like a springboard moment to do something that you've never done before? Were you looking for other jobs in the meantime? Did it feel temporary? What was that like?
Yeah, it felt like a really good income stream, and
Mhm.
with unlimited potential because there are so many people starting businesses or who had businesses, and they all needed copy. And there were actually not a lot of copywriters out there, at least nobody with kind of with my style who wrote with personality, who could make things sound conversational. And so it felt open and kind of boundless. I did feel for a while like, well, TV is my cool work
Mm.
and writing for entrepreneurs is kind of my secret, like, and it was a lot of coaches. So there's like kind of my goofy work.
Mhm.
Not that I didn't take it seriously, and I did great work for these people. Then I also had a blog that Marie had encouraged me to put on my site.
Mhm.
And it had nothing to do with anything. And I kind of refused. I knew that I was supposed to be writing about copywriting, and that it was supposed to be something that would attract my ideal client and that would establish credibility and authority, and then they would want to work with me. But I just could not bring myself to do that kind of writing. I was like, I have a blog. I want it to be a blog, and
Mhm.
I want to write my stories. I want to write about whatever. And rather than that backfiring, it actually started attracting more clients, people who would say, I love your copy, referring to my blog posts. I
Yeah.
want to work with you.
Yeah.
So I was expressing myself and writing in a way that I had always wanted to, and it was making me money in an indirect way. So it was good. And eventually I realized I was taking promo work because I was just taking every job that I could because I wanted to make every dime that I could.
Mhm.
But it was no longer serving me creatively, and it was giving me a bit of a headache, like, oh, why did I take on this assignment? Now I have homework.
Mm.
I now believe in a no homework life, a no homework business as much as possible. I hated having assignments hanging over my head and the pressure to come up with a great idea.
Yeah.
So I let that go bit by bit and started saying no to assignments. And then
Yeah.
I started saying no to private clients because I wanted to be known for my voice. I wanted to be writing in my voice for me, and be known for who I was, not who I served. I didn't want to be known as so and so's copywriter or anybody's anything. I wanted to be known as Laura fucking Belgray.
Right.
And I knew I could only do that by writing in my voice for me, using my copy for myself.
Yeah. And so let me ask you something, because anybody who's listening right now who's an entrepreneur, if they're thinking of hiring a copywriter, there's kind of different kinds of copy that you as a copywriter can write. It's not like just
Yeah.
because you're a copywriter, you have a general label and you're like,
Mhm.
I write and I can write like anything you want. There's all of these different reasons to write, right? Copy for websites, copy for
Mhm.
videos, copy for emails, copy for launches, right? There's writing books, right?
Yes.
So I would love to know. Oh, and I know you're working on a memoir.
Yeah.
How's it going? I've been wanting to ask you, how's it going?
It's going great. It's due summer 2021 and will come out summer 2022. And I've written a ton of it. I mean, right now I'm at the point of going through all this material that I've written and saying, like, okay, how can this anecdote be shaped into a real chapter, a real essay, or a real story
Mhm.
that has some meaning to it? And that's a little bit tricky because I love writing off the bat. I don't love the editing process. I kind of suck at that. I'd rather like write fresh, which I might end up doing, but it's going well. And it's called Tough Titties.
Nice. Oh, I love this so much. I've been wanting to ask you. So going back to, sorry, that was a tiny tangent for me because I wanted to know this. So thinking about all the different types of copy that there are that people
Yeah,
ask you to do, I would love for you to kind of rank them in a spectrum for me, in a continuum for me, from one being if I never have to write another word of that kind of writing, it would be too soon, to I love and I wish I were writing this kind of writing all day long. Like if you're
yeah,
thinking of all the different kinds, websites, video scripts, emails, launches, books,
sure.
what do
Okay,
they
well,
fall?
first of all, I don't write any of this for clients anymore. I just want to put that out there. But I would say I made my name in websites, and I enjoyed writing websites. I like that. People would ask me to write sales pages. I don't love a sales page. I kind of hate sales pages. I hate writing them. I rarely do I love reading them. And they're just big and unwieldy, and ugh, it's just like, oh God, which comes first? And they just get so lengthy. I don't love that. So that's down the chain. I'm going out of order here. I started with something I liked, went down to something I don't like. Um, I don't do ads really, Facebook ads, and because there's so many variables and so many moving parts, and like you can't say this word and you have to write around this word, and I don't really know my stuff with ads. I don't feel super competent, so don't love ads. Love writing Instagram posts and Facebook posts. I love writing my own social content. I love writing blog posts. I love writing emails, and I decided that I wanted to somehow make a living from just writing emails all day.
Mhm.
And so that's how I reshaped my business so that I could do that and make a living from my own emails to my list. And that is the form that I love the most. You don't have to worry about frameworks, like on the page. What do you call it? Wireframes.
Mhm.
That's the word I was looking for. You don't have to worry about the order of things except just the order of your words, the order of the story. It's an intimate format. It calls for a familiar tone. It's a one-to-one format originally. I mean, think about letter writing. That's how
Mhm.
it originated, one person to one person. And I love that about it. It gives me a chance to write creatively and sell.
Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, everybody has already noticed, even throughout this interview, that you you appear to be extremely confident in your skin. Hey, this is what I'm good at. This is what I like to do. This is what I don't like, and this is what I suck at. And it's just completely like a natural part of it, which is why I am actually really excited about this next part. I've never done this before, but I really want to try this with you because I think it would be
Awesome.
really fun to do this with you. Are you ready for this?
I think so. We'll find
Okay.
out.
You're going to help me create super clickbaity headlines for this episode. No, I'm not going to make you do work. This is going to be
Mm-mm.
fun, I promise you.
We'll
Uh,
see. Okay.
Based on the answers to these questions, I'm going to ask you, I have a few clickbaity questions.
Hmm.
Okay. And you're just going to give me an answer. I'm not making you work. This is not copywriting.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
where we're going to get like clickbait for this episode from because they're
Okay.
clickbaity questions.
Hmm.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. I'm gonna start with clickbaity question number one. So you got into the online world because you got to know Marie Forleo, being in the same hip hop dancing class in New York City, and I've heard this story a few times, so I'm not afraid to ask you this question, but it's a total winner for clickbait. What did you really think of Marie Forleo when you first met her?
I couldn't stand Marie Forleo. I thought she was so annoying. Just, I hated on her. I was a troll and she was in the front of the class looking gorgeous, flat abs, bouncy hair, didn't really even sweat, hit every move, nailed it always, hit, cat, boom, cat. And she had a super great attitude, and I just found her annoying.
I love this one so much. Because obviously you guys are really good friends.
Yes.
And right. And she's just annoyingly wonderful. And I wanted you to say that out loud. There's my clickbait for this episode. Clickbaity question number 2.
Okay.
What do you want to change in the new year around your business? Because it's just not working anymore.
Hmm. I think I like everything in my business right now. I would just like to multiply my income doing the same thing without doing any extra work.
Love it. Next clickbaity question. Where does the name Talking Shrimp come from?
Yeah, I wish that were a clickbaity, sexy story. It actually comes from our tax accountant. Because when my husband and I got married in 2007, after like our next tax year, so we got reamed. And like Mark, who's our accountant, I was like, I thought we were going to do, I thought our taxes would be better when we got married. And he said, why would you ever think that? Of course they're not. They're worse. So what you should do is incorporate. The two of you should incorporate. So pick a name. It doesn't matter what it is. Pick a name, preferably something with an available URL. And I will set it up. I will incorporate you. And believe it or not, nobody had scooped up talkingshrimp.com. So that's how Talking Shrimp was born.
Where did it come from?
It was okay. So my husband's in restaurants. I'm in writing. We wanted something that it could apply to both of us, either of us, or neither of us. And that could mean anything or nothing. And we also liked shrimp a lot, and we're always traveling and going to Mediterranean towns, and always accused of always posting pictures of seafood in beautiful Mediterranean towns. So maybe that was part of the inspiration. Yeah.
And this is one final question. It's from the audience. This is a question from Kylie Wolfig in Australia. Say hi, Kylie.
Hey, Kylie.
And her question is, how do you keep your emails so casual and personable, but still like she has never seen that kind of copy before?
I write the way I talk. I collect stories as I go along. I'm always making notes in Evernote on my phone, so that I think that my talent is in going small. So focusing on really small moments and small stories instead of waiting for big ones to happen. And I think that that is my secret sauce. And then writing really frequently so that I have the luxury to do that. I don't have to tell you everything big that happened at once. I am able to go deep on really small things because I already wrote to you the other day and told you that other thing. So I don't have to wait for inspiration.
I like that. I never thought about it that way. You're just sharing everything you need to share in the moment, and there's nothing accumulating. There's no
Oh yeah.
fire hose that coming your way.
Oh
I
yeah.
like that. So, what do you think is a big misconception that people have of you as a successful online entrepreneur?
Well, I think one big misconception is that I am or have been Marie Forleo's copywriter. And I always bristle when they call me that because A, it does a disservice to Marie, who's an incredible copywriter herself. And I've learned a lot about copy from her. We partnered on on the Copy Cure for one, and then on co-writing every episode, every scripted episode of Marie TV for several years, for years and years, for as long pretty much as it was scripted. Um, so when they say that I'm Marie's copywriter, that also gets on my nerves because, as I said before, I don't like being called anybody's anything, even though that one is a great honor, even if it's not true. That's what gets under my skin. I'm like, I'm me. I'm not Marie's ex or anybody's anything. I'm me.
I know exactly what I'm going to call this episode. It's just Laura fucking Belgray.
Awesome.
That's what
Please
this
do.
episode is.
I love it.
So, if you had the power to tell the whole world to do something, to improve their life, to make more money, to make something better, and they have to do it in the next 24 hours, what would be that thing that you're telling the whole world to do?
Well, if I'm telling the whole world to, if we're talking about starting a business, because I think a business is the greatest teacher, it is anybody who's stuck, starting a business is really the greatest self-development tool that there is to transform you and your life and all the crappy habits and stuckness that you're dealing with. So I would say to do that and start by thinking, what can I teach somebody? Like, what can I teach people? What do people want to know from me? And I would say create a lead magnet around that and start getting people to sign up for it, opting in to an email list.
Mhm.
Start building an email list and writing to them, and then you write to them. That's not all going to happen in 24 hours, but that's the first thing that you do is set up an email list, a landing page for your lead magnet, get an email list together. The list is everything, and it will do all the business for you if you treat it right. And so for me, writing to my shrimpers has been the best thing I've ever committed to
Mhm.
business wise. I'd say
I know.
business wise because my husband is really the best thing I've ever committed to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Laura Belgray, where can people find you and follow you?
people can come to talkingshrimp.com. I have made it as much as possible into an opt-in honey trap so that you don't leave the site without signing up for my list in some way. You can look for my freebies or you can just sign up for my emails. And then I'm on Instagram as Talking Shrimp NYC. Not just Talking Shrimp, that's somebody else's account. Bitch wouldn't give it to me. She had like 29 followers and didn't post anything. She's like, no, I really like it. It's a character from something something. What? So Talking Shrimp NYC, which is fine.
We'll remember that. Thank
Thank you.
you, Laura. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much.